Hi, hey, hello, and welcome. I am Kirsten. This is Tristan, and we are Haseya Inc.
Welcome back to the Conscious Conversation, where we love to drop in and talk about just about everything from a deep philosophical, spiritual, scientific way. And it's our favorite time to gather with you each week. So we're glad that you're here. And we're talking about nature today because we're in the third section of the happiness series. All these simple yet profound ways to experience just more happiness. And they sound so simple, right? But truly, it can be that simple because of what is existing within us, right?
Absolutely. I have a fun invitation for you guys, just because we're talking about nature, and I know a lot of you are new here, which thank you for being here. We created this space because, first of all, Tristan and I love to talk. We love to talk about things that light
Yeah.
up our soul. And what better way to help support you? What better way to show up in service than when our heart isn't just lit up, right? And so over time, we got more intentional and more directive, which is this happiness series. But if you go back onto our Instagram and you can scroll back and you can find a video, Tristan, I feel like I didn't even tell her this. I feel like she knows already what it is. Um, when we first started, we were doing lives. Just we would do these calls live on Instagram, and we'd have sometimes just spiritual practices. Sometimes these be these conversations. Sometimes they'd be trauma coaching. And there's a video where we're stepping out into the snow. And the whole premise and purpose of this call
Yeah.
was to talk about being uncomfortable and sinking in, and connecting back to the body. And it's great. People that knew me watched that video and called me out and were like, Kirsten, you couldn't stay in the snow. What happened? It's like, yeah, my ego was still really big that day. If you can find that and you can send it to us on email or Instagram, I'll give you a free sound immersion for your diligence and then learning about our journey and where we came from. But I just thought that was so perfect that we were talking about nature today and the evolution of my own journey of how that has changed and transcended and looked in my practices versus how it used to. So just a little funny antidote as we kick off.
Damn, a free sound immersion? Okay, and I want you to see it because it's funny because right when we started the call, she didn't tell me about that at all. Right when we started the call, and I guess said something about nature, she was about to speak. I was like, that one time when we wanted to stand in the snow and you like totally were like, okay, I'm done, like instantly. And I was like, well, um, okay. I didn't want to call you out. And so I love that you called yourself out because we can laugh about it and it was super fun.
Yeah, it was great. Which is something we'll talk about today in nature. Being authentic with yourself, and what that looks like for you as we dive into this chat. But we can have fun in this experience of when we're trying to be more intentional and more aligned and directing consciously our lives. It doesn't have to be as rigid as we make it feel. It gets to be an invitation, and we hope that you guys are taking these little nuggets and beginning to apply them into your lives and how it feels good for you.
Absolutely. And that's naturally just how Kirsten and I are. And so, we always hope that like that authenticity really bleeds through here, no matter what we're talking about, and no matter what one thinks a spiritual leader, coach should behave like, or act like, or talk like, or whatever. We always aim to be in alignment and be within our values, but we're a little bit silly and we love to play and we love to joke and we love to laugh about how amazing and smart and creative and powerful we are as humans and how funny we are. And so it just makes, I think, everything move easier. And it doesn't mean we laugh at you, but we like to laugh at ourselves. So, and laugh at things. So, talking about nature. really excited about this conversation because this is deeply one of the ways that I really worship. Um, so connected with nature, whether I am working horses and just is one of my most powerful ways of being in worship is being, horseback and just enjoying a nice ride or, being in the barn and even cleaning. You would think that would be like, okay, yeah. No, like doing the hard work and sweating and use my hands and being in that super intentional space or just being outside in nature and in my garden and my greenhouse, you guys, like this is such a way of worship for me and the awe and the infinite possibilities and the absolute example of law of cause and effect, law of nature. And that is how as I'm moving through like my gardening and stuff like this, that I am in prayer. I am in awe. I am in worship of the intelligence that's backing everything of Spirit of God and that my connection to it and facilitating and seeing in that mirror. It's just this is my biggest way to worship.
So it's your jam. Like we
Oh,
couldn't
damn. Yeah.
So I mean, so
Would never guess that. You would never guess, I'm sure.
as you guys can gather, right?
Yeah.
This is more than just like trees and sunsets.
Hmm.
That is like important. It is a part of it. It reflects things into us, but it is the intricacy of, who we are innately at the root, at the center. And what we're talking about, right, is creation itself.
Yeah.
That is what nature is a representation of. When we say, in awe and looking at, the growth and, Tristan giving us that beautiful mental picture of her like laboring and being in the garden, connecting with her land and with her animals. And you can just feel it. It's palpable. It's present. It's there. And it's an opportunity over and over again for us to reconnect to spirit, reconnect to home, reconnect to our infinite potential. And for me, nature, I wouldn't say is something that is secondhand. It's something I've grown into. Just like the funny haha about sticking my feet into the snow. It was an escape from like my day to day, where that wouldn't be what I would want to put in my practice. It was, I go up to the mountains, I go to the beach, I go visit a relative, I go visit a friend, and I would rejoice and take in all that was around me. But it was a leisure. It wasn't something that I was allowing myself to do. And even now, when it gets cold outside and it's not like prime weather, it's something I'm intentionally still inviting myself to be out in it instead of, oh, I wake up, I do my practice and with my instruments, and then I'm here with my computer and I'm in and work and I'm with clients and I'm doing these things where making myself take those natural breaks to reconnect and be in that space. So whether it is, a limb for you, it's a part of you, or it's still something that you're having to do, you're still able to get all of these beautiful remembrances and connections from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we hope you take this invitation to just um really notice all the ways in which that we get to be in worship and in in inspiration and we're so supported and that's what we hope this conversation leads to, right? Is that understanding of that mirror and how supported we are. Arthur Brooks, because we're talking about, one of his talks, and of course we added like a little one, but the happiness is off of the four pillars of the things that he says. This brings you more happiness. He teaches it at Harvard, but he talks about the importance of awe. And we talk about the importance of awe every time we talk about prayer. And prayer is our absolute like boulder and foundation when we talk about reprogramming our subconscious mind, experiencing and shifting our experience in life and getting our mind right, aligning, manifesting, creating, whatever it is, it comes down to prayer, all of it, right? And that we're living, breathing prayers every day. And so that we take that responsibility of what's moving through us. But those moments where we remember how big life is and how held we are in something greater. So when you are awe-inspired in nature, you really have the opportunity to really be directing, prayer. And in that awe, because when we're in that awe of something so much greater, this intelligence and this, oh my gosh, just all of it, this beauty, we start to learn how to connect with it and how to surrender these little things that we feel are so big in prayer.
Which is such a beautiful demonstration and reflection. Yes, we're getting there. We're going to talk about the mirror and all the things. But so much of us stay within our mini mind and our day to day, and we're hyper fixated and focused on whatever it is that we're going through,
Yeah.
moving through. It's not always about overcoming, right? Sometimes it's about the things that we're celebrating, wherever our mind is at. And then when we allow for nature to do what it does and to open us up into that awe space, you feel it. It's undeniable.
Mm.
And scientifically too, there it's been shown in studies of like wave patternings and stuff, and what happens within the psyche when you are in nature and you are recognizing creation itself. It activates our parasympathetic nervous system. It lets us be present. It lets us be in the body, be here and now, which is the only time when we're able to really see that there's more than just little old me. And we're
Oh
not
yeah.
just little old me. We're infinite and we're connected to spirit always, but within this vastness of our collective and expressions and all of the things, and we just get to be held in it. It's like so much yummy goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Our studies of New Thought, it teaches this too. The teachers that we study, Troward, he says that nature is the divine and manifestation. And Emily Cady called nature the visible evidence of God's presence. So it's not just, taking in a pretty view, I don't feel. It's taking that a step deeper, really experiencing nature, So when we step outside and we feel that peace, it's not an accident, right? It's resonance. It's our spirit recognizing spirit. And I think that's so beautiful, and may we move more we always talk about moving more intentionally and in the present moment. And this is just a beautiful reminder of doing that in nature too, and how much can teach us.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we just talked about the science piece. Bruce Lipton
Yep.
again dives into this, but it's just proof to showing us how nature is medicine. What it really activates within our system and allows, for life to move through. Like we teach a lot about breath work and the intention of our breath. Breathing life into our lungs. Our environment plays such a huge role in that. So putting ourselves near animals, water, trees, open sky, whenever we have that, opportunity, or we create that experience in our day to day and our practices.
Yeah, it can change our mood instantly. And I know you guys have recognized that, right? Unless you're like, you have to actually work hard, I feel like, to keep reminding yourself why you're mad. And I'm not saying I haven't been really good at that, but I am saying that there's an easier way to shift our mood if we allow it, right? Because you're right. I mean, it regulates us without words, and it does provide such a beautiful medicine that's energetic. It's unbelievable. But we talk about performance a lot too, right? Talk about performance, but it does pull us out of that. It pulls us out of that performance and out of stress and out of thinking and back into the present moment. And I know there's also some of us that will, be outside and will still be focusing on the things outside that we need to improve. If you are driven like that, my husband, for instance, he is a hard worker and he's always thinking about what he needs to be doing to make something better and so we have those conversations of like, yes, and let's just take a pause, right? Let's take a pause, take a breath. And he is a huge nature guy too. I mean, he loves to sit in trees all day, I mean, he is providing for the family, but um there is a medicine there if you take that breath. Maybe you take a little bit longer because originally, if you're moving outside and you're like, I know I go out there and I think about what needs to be done. And that's what I'm talking about here is the longer you will just take outside and notice the beauty and take a little bit longer, your nervous system starts to regulate and starts to open up to that peaceful state. When my husband is out in nature all day, he comes home with stories about, all the things and how it's so much more than, what he's out there with a goal, but it's so much more than that. It's regulation, it's worship, it's peace. It's just there's so much out there for us that when we think about being supported, we truly have everything that we need already. Jesus often taught in nature. And yeah, there was not any big amphitheaters at the time, but um, being in nature and being grounded and being open, having that heart open, that mind open. Um, Holmes, we're talking about all the people that we study here with New Thought, if you haven't noticed with this conversation, but Holmes said that God expresses as form all around us. And Butterworth said creation reveals the face of the divine. So just taking out all these little pieces that align with this nature conversation. I love those little quotes, just reminding us that it is more than just being outside and recognizing a sunset.
Yeah, for sure. And I know we're talking about getting, out of the mind, but from a philosophical standpoint, it's a teacher. It reveals to us, cycles within the seasons of nature, the surrender in which nature goes through, in which, we too
Mhm.
have to go through. And, the birth in spring and the renewal and the patience and the balance and just the art of not forcing but allowing things to naturally flow and to move. It is a masterful teacher, and we can really look at our own lives as a mirror of this. How often we are trying to, force a round peg into a square hole and to make it happen right here, right now. And the reality is, we're in a season like our spirit is calling for rest. It's calling for renewal. It's calling for a surrender. It's not calling for a rebirth and a new bloom, right?
No, and nothing in nature tries to be anything other than what it is. And that honesty, that authenticity invites us to do the same. It invites us to do the same and be in the full bloom of spring and the, internal reverence of winter and the changing, all of it. That's authentic. That is okay. It's perfect, actually, because we think we need to be that straight line of production and expression, in so many areas of life, so many areas. I like the quote that awe is worship in the wild. That wild worship. I love that. And it sounds like we're talking about worship again, but we are talking about nature.
It's all the same thing.
It's all the same. All of it is.
The distinctions, right, that just expand our mind, that allow us to open up to what we're talking about. That, I mean, that's what these are. And they do connect and they overlap because they're the same thing. They're the same. It just, again, laughing at myself. We're going to get into some examples, of things that you guys can do. But be authentic. You don't have to go stand out in the snow barefoot and force yourself to do a prayer. If that's not you, I'm reminded of a woman that we met in our New Thought community whose husband, his jam is like about getting back to the primal state of the feet and like working them and building them up basically to be back to being one with nature, where he can go on these runs and these hikes and do all these things. But in no way does he ever say, hey, take your shoes off and go like try to run up, your countryside because your feet are going to be absolutely destroyed. We don't have to force ourselves to do these things that we think that we need to do to allow more happiness to come in, to allow nature to be an embodiment and expression of our life. How is it naturally calling to you? How does it speak to you? Where do you feel the awe? Where do you feel the calm? Where do you feel the stillness?
Absolutely. And that's different for every single one of us. It's different for every single one of us. It's that color, that colored flower that like whips your head back as like you just catch it and it grabs you. It's the sunset, it's the sunrise. It's for me, it's the breath of my horse. It's um the sound of them chewing their food. I know I love listening to them eat. It's crazy. But it is something that I sit in peace with, okay? Um the smells of nature, just the things that bring you back. And when you start bringing this practice into it, um, it'll help. Just like we talk about having that same spot for you to kind of get your practice going with your meditation and stuff, so you can like sink in that remembrance, and your body says, oh, I know what we're doing because it's the same spots at the same time. It's whatever, these smells and these things that you see and these colors or sensations. And the more time we spend in that deep reverence and that deep place of peace, you could be in the city and catch a little whiff of that smell and bring you back in that peace. It can be, it just, the practice of it allows us to stay in it more, right? Whether it's in meditation at our house, it's meditation and prayer out in nature, and it's moving into it being our daily life of living in awe and living in that knowing of support and infinite possibility and peace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, there's a quote that I have tattooed on my body that I went back with an old mentor to look at the metaphysical meaning of the words and the translation from the Bible. And it talks about, it says, grass withers, but if grass withers and flowers fades, but God's word endures forever. So basically meaning the state of our mind is going to ebb and flow. But the nature of God is constant. It is the same. And so expanding your heart and your mind to sit in that reverence and just looking at how much, like a seed that is planted, a flower, a blade of grass, all of these things that we wouldn't necessarily place so much human significance on, but yet at a cellular level, how like divinely perfect they are. And their ebbs and their flows and their flourishing of life and existence, and then expanding that remembrance unto a demonstration of spirit, this unique out picturing of all that is and all that has been, and sinking in that today, this week. And you are going to be so amazed at how much your mind shifts and how like alive your heart is just by in having that reverence and that recognition. So taking that invitation, allowing sunlight on your face in the morning. So you're getting up, first thing you do, you open up that window and you just take a couple of deep breaths and start working on that sleep pattern, that wake pattern of morning and being graced by the sun. We can be outside for 5 minutes barefoot. Doesn't have to be in the snow. We're just grounding ourselves, right?
It is winter.
It is winter. It is winter. But in the summer too, all the time, all the things, we're still receiving that same energy, that same grounding principle from the earth. It's so important. Taking deep breaths outside. You go on a walk. We're listening to an intentional podcast. We're listening to this conversation, and we're breathing in that air. It's little simple things. We don't have to become somebody that lives out in the elements, that has no Wi-Fi or any connection to daily society to really connect with nature. It's these little micro expressions that lead to this macro expression. So you don't have to have a forest, or a grandiose backdrop or landscape. You just need to be willing to allow it into your heart, into your space, into your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I know that for you, I remember you talking about just even sitting on the back of the motorcycle and just the wind, blowing through your whole system and how cleansing and liberating that feels to you. That all these connections of the wind and the sun and the nature. It's all about, and that our last talk of that about happiness is presence and all the different ways in which we get to know how supported we are. But we just invite you to let nature be your teacher. Let it regulate you and remind you and soften you and speak to you. And all the ways, may we live more aligned with nature and allow that to express through our health and our emotional well-being and um all it'll translate through everything, relationships, but really it's like the health is a big thing right now, right? Being more aligned with nature in the way that she has so much to offer us, and so many ways in which we're provided for there, and regulating our nervous system is part of that. It's one of the biggest pieces of that. So there's so much here for you. It's all here. It's just taking that intentional pause because we think we're too busy for it, but there's a lot of things that, aren't really as important probably as, getting regulated and being in awe and being able to make those conscious choices to shift into that new experience and new reality.
Absolutely. Whew. This has been such a wonderful, wonderful conversation. We hope that you guys are finding value and that you'll join us next week because we're going to move into a whew, transformative topic, which is suffering. Oh man, it is juicy, it is big, and it is big because it is such a shift in paradigm of the way most of us are showing up and operating and feeling about our life, our day to day. So we know this conversation will be liberating. We hope to have you there and that you're enjoying these calls and that you are taking your staff. You are putting yourself back in that driver's seat to welcome and command happiness into your life.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. It's not too late to jump into a 30-day challenge with us or jump into a container if you're feeling moved. We're here for you. There's so many things, like we said, that are here for you already, but we'll see you next week. We love you so much. Have a great day.